lady. Man, those trucks. This is the Hey everyone, it's Jess. I hope everyone's doing well today. It's a bit chilly outside. It's also a little bit windy, so I'm hoping the audio is okay, doesn't pick up too much of the wind. But guys, today I wanted to do a video showing my Philodendron painted lady, which is her right here. She's so big and beautiful. She's a pretty big specimen. She's about this big. And my Philodendron autumn queen, which is this one right here. She's a much smaller plant. The reason why I wanted to do a video featuring both of these plants at the same time is because I find that these two plants have very similar characteristics, particularly when it comes to their foliage and even when it comes to their care. Now I think I will do a separate video dedicated to the painted lady and another one on the autumn queen on their care tips separately, but I thought it will also be helpful to have these plants both in the same video, just so we can see and compare the similarities and differences. When I was doing research for this video, it was actually quite hard to find differences between their two plants, because what I discovered is both of these plants share the same family group, so they come from the same species of plants that they're cultivated from. So the Philodendron painted lady is a hybrid of the Philodendron domesticum and the Philodendron arborescens. Similarly, the Philodendron autumn queen is also a hybrid of the domesticum and arborescens. However, the differences are in the types of form for the arborescens. And what do I mean by that? Well, the painted lady, it's a hybrid of the domesticum and Philodendron arborescens blushing variety, or blushing form. Whereas the Philodendron autumn queen is a hybrid of the Philodendron domesticum and Philodendron emerald queen. So both of these plants have Philodendron arborescens in them. However, the differences comes from the form. So the painted lady is the blushing form, while the autumn queen is the emerald green form. So that was something I discovered when I was doing my research, and at the beginning I would have thought that they would have different parentage, which I think goes to show that the plant world is extremely complicated, and probably a lot of it is unknown because there's so many different cultivars and so many different hybrids. And also within the species themselves, there's so many different forms. So like the more I get into plants and botany, I think the more interesting I find it, because I just realized there's just so many unknowns. But let's start with the characteristics of course, their foliage, because I think that's one of the key reasons why everybody can be really attracted to these plants. So the Philodendron lady has got these amazing spade-like leaves. The painted lady is characterized by a mottled yellow and lime green variegation, as you can see here. And personally, I think I'm a bigger fan of the yellow variegation over the white variegation. So I just think I like yellow variegation a little bit more. Younger leaves emerge more yellow, and over time they become more green. However, you can maintain the yellow variegation if you give your plant enough light. So I keep my painted lady in quite full bright direct light for most of the day, and its leaves are a lot more lighter compared to another painted lady I have. It's a cutting. I keep it in a lower light condition, and I might just put some footage here showing the differences between the green. You can see that with the cutting, the green, there's a lot more green and a lot less yellow, whereas if I keep outside, she's definitely got more yellow. Compare this to the And I would say that as your painted lady matures, I have heard that their leaves go more lime green as it gets older, and it can lose that yellow variegation. However, in my opinion, if you do give your plant enough light, I actually think you can maintain the yellow variegation in this plant. When you compare this to the Autumn Queen, its foliage is a little bit more subdued, so the green is a lot more of an intense green, which I think you can see the Philodendron arborescens Emerald Queen coming through in terms of the intensity of that green. If you compare the two. So definitely the Autumn Queen, the first one is that its yellow variegation is not as intense as the painted lady. I think its variegation is more on the coppery side or the orange side as opposed to the brighter yellow, the painted lady. And guys, I've got a new leaf to show you that copperiness. So for the Autumn Queen, new leaves emerge with quite a bright orange color, as you can see here. This leaf is already a couple of weeks old, so you can start to see the transition to green, but when it first emerges, quite a orange leaf, and as it grows older it becomes more green like this, and you can see that the variegation is not as intense, but it's still quite beautiful. So guys, I think that's the first difference between a painted lady and the Autumn Queen, is to look out for their foliage. The Autumn Queen has less variegation, less mottled variegation, and the variegation is more coppery versus yellow. I think with the Autumn Queen, in terms of maintaining its variegation, I actually find it's harder to maintain the variegation for the Autumn Queen compared to the painted lady. Both of these plants actually have the same lighting. I give it the same lighting. They both get bright indirect light, but I feel the Autumn Queen likes to go back to a more of a green form. Whilst we're on the topic of foliage, I might just quickly talk about the leaves, the form of the leaves. Another way you can distinguish between the two plants is that the Philodendron Autumn Queen has these much more long, slender leaves versus the Sorry guys, I think the bug just was flying to my face. Alright, this is the painted lady, where it has more of these spade-like leaves. And I was actually quite surprised that the parentage for both of these plants are the same, because I can understand domesticums and arborescens have these big spade-like leaves like this. So I can definitely see it coming through, but when you compare it with the Autumn Queen and its slender leaves like this, I don't know where it gets these slender leaves. If any of you guys know, please let me know. I'd be very interested, because I was very surprised by that. I thought that the Autumn Queen, by that arborescens and domesticum parentage, it would actually have the same form of leaves, but they don't. And so guys, that is another helpful distinguishing characteristic between the two plants, is look out for the shape of their leaves, because both of them are quite different. The next distinguishing factor for both of these plants is check out their stems. The painted lady actually has quite vibrant red stems like that. Oh, look at that one. Look at the chonkiness. And she's quite bright stems, which is characteristic of the Philodendron arborescens, because that has quite bright red stems as well. Compare that to the stems of the Autumn Queen. Her stems, whilst there's still redness, the intensity is much less so than the painted lady. The next thing to look for is how the plant grows. Now this is going to be a little bit difficult, because the two specimens I have are at different maturities. You can see that the painted lady, she's quite a mature plant, versus my Autumn Queen, which is it's still growing from a root cutting. But the painted lady is more of a climber, and so when this plant starts to grow and mature, it actually grows a lot like this. She'll start to take a vining characteristic like this. I know autumn queens are also climbers, but they're less climby. Actually, they're less viney than the Philodendron painted lady. If you do have the opportunity to buy a more mature specimen, I would say look out for how the plant is growing, because that can also give you an indication of whether it's an autumn queen or a painted lady. But of course, this can be tricky to compare, because sometimes it's quite difficult to compare two plants of the same maturity, and even then, plants of the same age can have different growth patterns. It can grow at different speeds, so I would just be mindful of that, looking out at that too. Guys, it's just getting a little bit windy outside, so I might wrap the video up here, but I hope you found this video helpful, showing some of the similarities between these two plants, but also some of their differences, to help you choose, or to help you identify a painted lady versus an autumn queen. I am going to try and do individual care videos for them, to provide a more in-depth overview, but I hope you found some of these care tips useful as well. Of course guys, if you have any questions, please let me know either in the comments below or just drop me a DM on my Instagram. But guys, I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye!